So we've got a bit of an agenda, which I think we've just sent around now. What we'll do is we'll go round. I'll try and do it alphabetically. I'm not very good at that, but I'll do my best, and help me if I forget anybody. If we just have a bit of that sort of temperature gauge check from everybody. In terms of just kind of welcoming people, it's just perhaps worth just reflecting on some of the brilliant ways in which the contribution of the network has helped shift and change things across the city. People will have had the outbreak plan and seen there's a really strong commitment in that to meeting the needs of diverse communities and linking across into some of the different communities of interest that you're all working with and supporting. And I think that's, again, kind of real testament to the way that we've been seen to be able to work together and be part of kind of willing collaborators in that piece of work. And that's helped really put some of that network onto the map of the work around inequalities. There's been a really important paper that's just going this week there's a Board of Boards meeting, which is the Health and Wellbeing Board, meets with each of the big NHS trusts and the local authority. They call it this sort of board to board. And there's a paper going at which we've also got people connected with this work that will be speaking. And so again, there's a real opportunity and a willingness, I think, in the city to want to know what it's like on the front line for all of you and what the kind of issues and challenges are. And then, you know, we continue to provide the weekly updates that Daisy sends out. There are a number of things in there that we perhaps won't cover in detail today, but really great to see the survey around pregnancy and understanding what the challenges and issues are for women sort of during COVID pregnancy. There's new guidance around carers. It's the sort of second edition of a really lovely collation of different information for carers. And the multilingual resources that the Migrant Information Sources group have pulled together. So, you know, continuing to try and share a broad range of different information. So just to kind of, I suppose the reason to just start with that is good and practical, constructive things come out of this work. It's great to meet and to talk and to share, but it's also really important that we see that there's that impact and that what is said is heard, and what is heard, we make sure that that starts to make a difference. So should we go around, welcome Iona and Anna and Jay. If we go around just briefly, and if people just say where they're from and just that kind of quick, kind of what's going on. So shall I say people just say their first name and then, yeah, do we try it that way? So let's start with Anne.
Hi. Doing the phone calls less frequently now, so probably catching up with organisations maybe every 3 or 4 weeks. Things are slowly returning back to normal.
So these are young people's organisations?
These are young people's organisations, yeah, working with 0 through to 25. Obviously, very interested in what will be announced today from Rishi in terms of young people, because some of them are moving further away from the labour market, and obviously some of the issues that have been identified around mental health and the long-term impact on these things. We've flagged up some things around education and the worries from BAME communities about returning to school and what things are in place. A lot of groups are now looking to organise play schemes over the summer, and they will be happening probably on a reduced scale, but it's something will be happening. And really good that organisations are working together to look at how they can support families over the summer schemes. We have a Young Lives meeting next week, and we have Vicky Fuggles coming along to talk about the youth work review, which has been going on for a long time, but there's a paper goes to exec board next week, so we'll see what the outcome of that is. and we're also catching up with Paul Rediex and Vicky Gabriel to talk about the early help hubs and how they've been instrumental in this period of time. And I think I've captured everything there.
That's great. Thanks, Anne. Welcome, Gina. We're just going around quickly just to do a kind of quick temperature check update. So Anna from Health Watch, hi.
Morning everyone. Sorry I was late. Just a really quick one from us this week. We've more or less finished our children and young people's survey. We got responses from, I think it was 787 parents and carers. We are currently putting together a briefing about that, but just in very briefly, we found that about 40% of children have their well-being has been made worse by lockdown. Often that's to do with things like isolation and struggling to regulate their emotions, much more emotional, much more tearful, much more quick to anger. And there've also been particular problems for, say, children with autism who are, have struggled with lockdown but are now finding it really worrying, the prospect of having to go to school and get out of the house, and it's making that transition back to sort of normality. So that'll be coming out very shortly. Our next survey will be about people with pre-existing conditions and how the communications they've received or haven't received about their treatment over lockdown, and their concerns for if they have any for their treatment over the next few months. And last thing, you might have also seen that we've now published our report into relatives' perspective on how care home residents have coped with lockdown and the particular pressures that come with not being able to see family members who normally be there, looking after them and checking they're all right. So I think that's it from us this week.
Brilliant, thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Chetna, alphabetically, you're next. Do you want to introduce yourself? I know you're speaking in a bit.
Yes, so I won't take up a lot of your time, but thank you for inviting myself and Sam today. My name's Chetna. I work in Tim Taylor's team. I think you met Tim a couple of weeks ago. So my normal day-to-day job is I work in the Inner East locality as a advanced health improvement specialist. But I'm here today to talk about the translation work and the group that we've been involved in, that Sam and I chair. So thanks for inviting me. It's really good to meet everyone today.
Brilliant, thanks, Chetna. And Gina, your first meeting, welcome with a kind of multiple and complex health needs hat on.
Hi, good morning. I'm Gina Rowlands from Bevan Healthcare. CIC, we provide general practice and outreach services to the homeless, asylum seekers, refugees in Leeds, Bradford and Hull. It's been a really busy period for us, as long with everybody else. I've just been looking at some of the figures that some of the staff have provided for me, and at York Street alone in Leeds, over the COVID period, the 14 weeks, we've provided 3,754 appointments. They've either been face-to-face or consultations on the phone. We've also been supporting on the outreach services over 200 people that were rough sleepers that were placed into hotels and various units around the city, providing care for them on an outreach basis, as well as the street sex working women at Joanna Project. We've been out and about as well, seeing some of the women in some of the properties that they're living in. So yeah, there's been a huge amount of activity, and we're continuing to support as many people as we can. And it was interesting to note that our practice population in Leeds that are registered with us, 55% of them had access to health barriers to being properly supported in the city, not just in terms of their health, but in language, literacy, destitution, poverty and food. So it's been a huge effort. It's not like everybody else's general practice. So as well as providing care, we've given out food, clothing, prescriptions for methadone to get people stable so that they're not having to buy street drugs, alcohol. So yeah, but well done to everybody. It's been a huge effort collectively.
Yeah, brilliant. No, and thank you for joining us and bringing that perspective. Priya, we haven't got. Mel, would you like to go next? Hi, Mel. Welcome.
Hiya. I'm Mel from Leeds Society for Deaf and Blind People. I'm actually one of the interpreters from the interpreting team, and I'm here in place of Carrie's today because she's actually busy. Later on, we're actually involved in the Digital Ambassadors webinar for the sensory awareness training. So I'll be interpreting rather than taking part in that this afternoon. But yeah, we've been open for 2 weeks now on a part-time basis, the Deaf and Blind Centre, and things are going well. We're not yet at a place where we can invite back the community, but we're working on it and things are going well. And so obviously there's a lot of isolated, vulnerable people out there, so we're hoping to get them back as soon as we possibly can.
Oh, thanks, Mel. And yeah, Caris has brought some really important issues about the different communication and challenges. And
yes.
Yeah, you're really welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Rachel from Carers Leeds, would you like to go next?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm here instead of Val for a little while, just because we're so busy at the minute, like everybody else. But I think what we've noticed, I manage all our first point of contacts into the service, and we're noticing quite a wave in new carers that have been helping a family member that's been shielding and is now expected to go back to work, and suddenly thinking, how can I juggle care that I've not been used to, and realising that actually they need a lot of support and going back to work. So we're getting a lot of new carers come through and a lot more professional referrals, which is great. And then our existing carers are starting to get that burnout now, definitely, wondering if they're ever going to get a break, ever going to get any respite. And even if it's offered, they're so scared to accept it. So we've got a lot of fear barriers that we're trying to overcome and build that confidence in people and services again.
Yeah,
so,
again, huge important issues. Thank you.
Yeah, there are two main themes, so that's it for me.
Thank you, Rachel. You're very welcome. Thank you. Jay, would you like to go next? Hi, Jay Anderson.
Hello, I'm pretending to be Simon today.
Brilliant, from the Faiths Forum. Fantastic.
Yes, I'm his usual stand-in when he's doing other things. So just to let you know. Important things. We have ratified you as our, we've ratified ourselves, should I say, as the faith sector community of interest link organisation.
Excellent.
We've decided that we're staying on Zoom for our meetings for the foreseeable future for the rest of 2020 because everybody's so busy doing other things in other places that we just don't want to mingle. Important things for us: opening places of worship. So faith communities are still grappling with all of the implications of that. So there's lots of discussions taking place, lots of webinars, lots of conversations happening behind the scene. And the other thing is that faith's been grappling with the climate crisis, and basically lots of webinars and podcasts and things have been taking place recently. The environment is one of the big priorities for the third sector, so it's, yeah, ultimately we're looking into that as well whilst reopening and dealing with all the implications of.
Yeah. And an incredibly important network in terms of getting messaging out, and so really glad that you could join us for particularly the section that Sam and Chetna are going to come on to. Thank you.
We're still delivering, Jane from Home Start Leeds.
The families and financial
families,
challenges.
yeah, we're still delivering more remotely to families. The volunteers have been great, being in contact, you know, both over the phone and virtually. We are starting to introduce gradually a few doorstep visits and things like that. And we're currently doing all the risk assessment around, people have returned to the office, but as someone else said, doing all the risk assessments and getting all the things in place to be able to invite people and prospective volunteers into the office and things. We have still been delivering things to families, not just food. We've had good links with the early help hubs and things, but you know, practical things like you know, for children, activity packs, things like that, clothing, baby stuff has been really, you know, we've sent a lot of that out. Our referrals for the first quarter of the year, they were down slightly, but we've noticed that there's been a big majority of self-referrals with pregnant women, and some that have come through health and social care. The only thing I can say is that our funders have been very, very supportive. And a couple of years ago, for people's info, a couple of weeks ago, we were successful in some funding from Henry Smith to support women on pre-birth assessments. And the only thing I can say is Henry Smith is one of the organisations that is still accepting, you know, non-COVID related applications. Yeah. We are one of the leads for single parents, lone parents, and we have got a meeting with a small group of us this afternoon. But if anybody wanted to join us, you know, in that, just you know, drop me. And the focus of this meeting is hearing the specific issues, so it'd be really good to kind of get that feedback from the kinds of concerns and challenges that group are facing. Yeah, I think some of the main concerns have been because some of them are really localised groups and small groups that are probably people are funded through a bigger national organisation, and it's them being able to put in for some of these grants that have been coming up, and they haven't been able to because it's still governed by the bigger organisation. So they have found ways around it about getting funding through, say, if you know one of the groups that are delivering within a church, it's the church that's gone for the funding, but then you know, so there are ways around it, but it is a lot more difficult. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, thank you. Jen from Turning Lives Around, how are you? Hi.
Oh, excuse me, morning everybody. Yeah, as most people have said, we're transitioning and repositioning ourselves in terms of how we're going to deliver our services. So we're working across a number of groups. Our way Leeds, which is the new young person's accommodation pathway, started last week, the 1st of July. So obviously we're getting still mobilising for that because the service won't be fully mobilised until 2022. So it's looking at some of the issues that Anne mentioned in terms of young people and how we're going to work with young people. Across the services, delivering in a variety of ways. Face-to-face is still minimised, but we're doing the doorstep stuff, telephone, all that continues. And I think, obviously, we're still involved with the hotel, so there's an impetus to get people moved from the hotels into other parts of our accommodation, so that remains a priority. And that's pretty much us, really.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jen. Owen from AIM, hi.
Hiya. Yes, I'm from Leeds Autism Aim. We're seeing inquiries from people who've got little support kind of stepping up, which kind of shows that people are maybe their functionality is improving slightly and they're able to kind of address the issues that they're facing, which is interesting. Some people are wanting to return to some form of normality, but the vast majority are kind of still feeling like they want to socially isolate. And there's positives to that and negatives to that, obviously. So we're kind of looking at increasing our kind of social offer there for people, for groups and that kind of thing. I wanted to maybe highlight a bit that partners and friendship groups have also kind of felt the strain a bit, as well as carers, you know, and that they've maybe stepped up more than they usually have and might be kind of burning out and needing a little bit of support. And I know that partners often feel kind of like there's not stuff for them. So it'd be interesting to do work on that really with other people, making inquiries into that. We're looking at kind of always increasing our resources to kind of manage the change. Obviously, recovery plan is in the pipeline for people who kind of want to do that, and I know other people are working on that kind of thing as well, and kind of working on communication profiles and that kind of thing. We've had a couple of people kind of saying, well, you know, GP surgeries, health services aren't available. You know, they're not open, which is obviously a message that was, you know, there quite a while ago, that was coming out, that there was limited services, but it's slightly concerning that that's still a message that people are kind of getting or have stuck to. We're kind of inviting organisations to look at kind of co-production of resources and look at their access, because we're aware that people tend to either get stuck in services and not have good outcomes, or ping around services when they might be actually appropriate for the services they've initially gone to. So we're working with a few people on that. But apart from that, there's lots of other things, but I'll keep it brief.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful though. That sort of individual response and how people are coping and adapting is really important. Thank you for that, Owen. Paula from Barker, hi.
Hi, morning everybody. I'm Paula Garner, Operations Director at Barker Leeds. Work across a number of services that work with people with multiple and complex needs. So one thing to mention is that the Forward Leeds hubs have opened more regularly now. They did transition to having real minimal contact and seeing clients there, was doing everything over the telephone, but that's opened up a bit more now. But the other services have been working well doing the telephone calls. It's not ideal for everybody, but for some services it's actually worked quite well, and something that will kind of continue. Not wholly, but for some people it works better as well. It's quite interesting to have that kind of flexible approach and recognise that for some people it works. But the other thing that I wanted to mention today was that just this last week we've had two really serious racial incidents, which is unusual. I've worked, you know, in Barker for like 4 years and not had this type of situation where we've had new clients that have been phoned and they've quite openly said that they don't want to speak to a black worker, which I just think is really concerning. And I don't know whether it's just coincidence that they've come at the same time, or if it's to do with the heightened issues around the Black Lives Matter agenda. So I just thought it'd be interesting to raise it here, and just wondered if it was something that other people were seeing, or whether it is just, you know, a really, you know, unfortunate blip that it's happened to, you know, two different services, two completely different people, but really quite blatant racist remarks to our staff, which is unusual. So I just wanted to flag it here, because it might be something, it might be a trend that's going on. It might be just, like I say, just an unfortunate coincidence.
Yeah, no, thank you, Paula. Really appreciate you raising that. And if anybody wants to say anything particular or use the chat, sorry, I should have said at the beginning, you know, do use the chat as well to kind of add thoughts and comments. We're actually running a forum central, separate to the community of interest, but a session on Monday. So if anybody's interested, we can send information out about that, because we wanted to have a conversation about some of the impact of, you know, the whole kind of Black Lives Matters. As you say, it's very much in the media, but there's also perhaps in relation to this communities of interest work as well, we know that there are greater risks, don't we, for people from their own communities. And so, yeah, huge issues, and really appreciate you raising that, Paula. Thank you. Charlotte from Gate, hi.
I think she's here.
She's gone again. Sorry. Emily, hi, welcome.
Hi there. Sorry, I was late. I had another meeting.
Sorry.
So just a really quick update. I know that I've mentioned it a lot of times to you, but our COVID-19 women's survey is complete. We had 979 responses. That information has been analysed now and has been put into a report. We're just finalising the summary and the recommendations. We're going to be linking it in with the city listening project that ran before COVID-19. It's basically showing us that the, you know, issues for women, you know, existed before, obviously, and have just been exacerbated a little bit by COVID-19. So it'll be really interesting to link those two pieces of link the data together, and it will show us a bit of a journey. But some fascinating stuff come out of it, which I'm sure you'll all guess. Things around mental health, lots of stuff about employability, gender inequality, going backwards, lots of women talking about the stresses of juggling childcare and working from home and household chores and homeschooling, and also the emotional burden as well. They feel like they're carrying a lot of that kind of stuff more than men. So there's great stuff that's come out of that. Like I said, we will share it. We're in the final stages of just putting it together. What was really important was that if 979 people wrote a comment to all the questions, every single one of those needed to be read, and every single one needed to be sort of put into a theme and given, if someone had bothered to write something, I wanted to make sure that it counted. So that's the reason why it's taken us a few weeks to get all that information together. It will be with you shortly, and hopefully it will be useful in everybody's areas of work, really.
Fantastic, that's really good. And I know there's also work happening around men as well at the same time, and really important to understand those kind of gender differences, really.
Yeah, definitely, because there's some disproportionate effects to men as well, but they're just different to women. So both are equally important for us to be focusing on. Yeah,
brilliant, thank you. Wendy from AdvoNet, hi, have you got anything to add? Hi, Wendy.
Hi. We're seeing a high increase in mental health referrals continuing. A lot of concerns about some of the older people and the digital inclusion aspects there. Learning disability wise, we're continuing to see more mental health, isolation. Our Leap One service is now reaching nearly 300 people, particularly people that are isolated. The Keeping Neurodiverse People Connected project reached 200 people who weren't connected to services, but I want to be able to tell you more information about that. We're really concerned about, particularly around learning disabilities and autism. So within some of AdvoNet's satellite services, the access to health services that was already had huge health inequalities for those two groups, and that's likely to be worse post-COVID. And like Owen says, people are thinking that they can't access those services. So we're linking with GPs and local care partnerships around some of that to look at how we can support it. We have a lot of new self-advocacy resources. They're on our website. We're really happy to work with people or groups in developing some of those or using some of those within your settings. Lots of things going on with AdvoNet, but a high increase in mental health referrals is one of the main things that's coming out. Still some blanket restrictions in care homes. Lots of issues within loads of our vulnerable groups that are coming in at the minute. That's why we want to really help people to use those self-advocacy resources to be able to put forward their needs more easily at this time.
That's really important. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. Sam from the Migrant Access Partnership, do you want to speak now? I know you're kind of on the agenda as well. And then Iona, last but not least, I haven't forgotten.
I'll just touch briefly. PIP and update. So as other partners have shared, the work continues around the people who are seeking asylum or have got no recourse to public funds, around some more sustainable housing solutions. So there's a working group looking at NRPF and housing. The Home Office has also advised us that they are going to start making the positive discontinuations of asylum decisions. So people who are in the asylum process who have had a positive decision will start receiving those. So we're starting to prepare for that work. And we haven't had an update on what will happen with asylum seekers who get a negative decision. The other thing to mention is the West Yorkshire Combined Authority consultation, and we'll be promoting the consultations happening, and Iona's work with Voluntary Action Leeds. And lastly, the deadline for EU settlement is the 30th of June 2021. So we're into the last year of people needing to regularise their status. Leeds has done really well. We've got 36,000 people who've applied, but it continues to be a priority to settle our European migrant status before the deadline.
That's helpful, and obviously if people want more, that's great. Thank you for that. Iona, have you got anything to add? Hi.
Hello. I mean, I put it in the chat box already. I'm here.
representing Annette for the BME hub, just to say that their work has been crossed over really with all the Black Lives Matter movement, and the evidence that COVID impacts more on those communities, so that they're sort of taking this work and very much looking at different work streams and working closely with Leeds City Council. So it's really positive and really exciting what's happening there. And this will get fed into the communities of interest work as well. Yeah. And just a reminder to everybody, you know, we have a bit of a sort of sample of people here, but a lot of this work kind of feeds out absolutely through other networks and brings information in from other people. Damien, welcome. We were just finishing. Would you like to do an update? Hi, good to see you.
I've not got a massive update for the last 2 weeks. I think I'll just, if anything comes to mind, I'll add it in a bit if that's all right.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Really great to get that kind of breadth of issues. And I think some of those strong issues coming through around mental health and some of the impact as the system and the situation is starting to change and things are opening back up has been quite an important theme, hasn't it, to think about how that might be an impact, and that really important point about racial incidents and making sure that we're really tuned into some of those, just massive issues that will affect staff as well as actually people that we're supporting. So thank you all for that kind of broad range of updates. So we wanted to next talk about, so following on from the conversation Tim Taylor came to the last session that we had, we're really delighted that Chetna and Sam wanted to continue that conversation. So in the whole context of thinking about the whole testing and tracking and tracing and that whole kind of massive public health piece of work that's very much about how as a system we respond to not just prevent outbreaks but also make sure people are getting really good information and working constructively and positively. So Chetna and Sam particularly wanted to ask some questions really about the messaging. There was a particular comment from the last session we had about making sure that we had longevity of messages and wanting to think through some of the insights around community engagement and how we make best use of this network to disseminate information. So I'll hand over to Chetna and Sam, and then we'll have an opportunity for some questions and discussion.
And Chetna and I will take you through some key work quite quickly because we want to get your ideas and seek your input. So as you remember, we went into lockdown, we started to develop some key messages and we did them into YouTube videos and we translated a lot of documents, and I kept feeding that back to the group and connecting the group to that. Now the work of the group has expanded and we're looking at COVID-19 messages to priority groups and communities. So that's what Chetna and I are working on, and we want to take you through what the key messages are that we have seen of having greater longevity, so we can put some communications around the key messages. We'll take you through that first and then consult with you about how we can best engage on that. Chetna?
Yeah, okay, so the key messages, as Sam mentioned, so there's 6 key messages. The first one is keep a safe distance from others. We've decided on, oh sorry Sam, have you put that in the message box?
Yes, in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, so you can see those as well in the chat as well. Thanks Sam for doing that. Keep a safe distance from others was really important because we know that, you know, it has been 2 meters and that is changing to 1 meter plus. 2 meters, 1 meter plus. What does 1 meter plus mean? It's quite a complex message. So what we've gone with in Leeds, and this has been agreed through corporate comms in Leeds, is keep a safe distance from others. We felt this was better than having the 2 meters because of the change in the distance that's been talked about through the government. The message around washing your hands is the same, so wash your hands regularly for 20 seconds we know that washing hands for 20 seconds with soap or, hand sanitizer gel works to get rid of germs. So 20 seconds is really important. You must wear a face covering on public transport and in healthcare settings. So again, it doesn't have to be a clinical mask, because we know clinical masks need to be reserved for NHS staff and for healthcare staff. So it's a face covering, and there's a lot of debate about face coverings and whether they are worthwhile to have, but at the moment the current advice is to wear a face covering. No one in your household should leave home if anyone has symptoms. So again, we know that that's the same message that's been throughout the COVID lockdown. If you have symptoms, stay at home and book a free test. We thought it was important to put free test in there because some people thought you had to pay for a test, and then that would put people off. We've also got the telephone number as well as the address, the nhs.uk/corona virus address there, so you could either do it online or to ring the telephone number. If you need to stay at home, have no family or friends for support, ring the telephone number, which we know is the number that we've got at the moment. So those are the key messages, and we've been back and forth with these, as I say, with comms, with the public health team that sits above our group, that Sam and I chair, and we've had lots of discussions, but these have now been agreed, and we're looking to get these translated as well. So that's the first part. Is there any questions on the key messages? Okay, Jen. Yeah, what is the question on those with respiratory diseases, e.g. asthma, wearing face coverings? I'd have to check that. I think, I'd need to check it really to make sure I'm giving you the right information. From what I understand, I think it's the same. But Daisy's put a link here.
There are a list of those people that don't need to wear one, and on that it says people with breathing difficulties.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that, Daisy. So yes.
Come back in, Damien. Right.
Yeah, I think it looks brilliant. It's brilliant that you're doing this, all these key messages in different languages. I think that's a great idea. I suppose for me, I mean, and I know this will apply to other people as well, releasing bits of information. I just wonder if there's, because for space reasons, for example, the magazine we do in LS8 and LS9, lots of different community languages there. We simply haven't got space to put all of that in all the different languages. Is there perhaps a sort of one specific area that we could direct people to get the information in their language? So, for example, so we could say, if you want information about coronavirus, go here and have that in different languages. Then that, personally, for me, we'd be able to fit that into that space. Then I imagine that might be the case for other newsletters and such like as well.
Yeah, definitely, Damien. We've got so what we've got is YouTube videos. So I should have mentioned that we've already got YouTube videos which are translated and also have voiceover in the community language. There's 11 community languages that we've focused on. So Sam did a fantastic piece of work when we first started around what the main languages are for Leeds. So we've got the 10 common languages, and then plus Bengali as well, because that was seen as a priority area for Bengali communities. So we can give you the links to the YouTube videos that we've got currently on there, which include hand washing, and it shows you how to wash your hands, and then it tells you how to do it and how long for, etc.
Have we got something that gives that signposting in the language, just the signposting sentence? Yeah.
what we're also looking at is to have a central place to save all this information, because part of the slowing down of sharing information is getting it through different email boxes, which is what we've relied on when we first locked down. So we're looking for a central website that's publicly available and that people can access that. And then I will pick up on that we sort of have that link then in all of our communications, but it is definitely being looked at how we can speed up that information. And what's really key about the key messages is it's taken national guidance and localised that, and it will underpin the prevention and outbreak work that we're doing. These are the key messages that will continually underpin the wider areas of work. We're also doing some BSL interpretations as well, so a range of formats we're trying to look at, which is also what we wanted to consult with you on.
Brilliant. And Jen, I think your answer, your issue's been picked up, so thank you.
Sorry, I think it was more about, and it only came up on a personal level because my daughter was going on the train, and she says, "What do I need to do?" And I said, "Well, you've got asthma, so you don't need to do anything." She said, "But what if I'm challenged at this moment in time?" So she had heightened anxiety at the fact that somebody might challenge her, or she might get into trouble if she didn't have the mask. So I'm just wondering whether it's worth putting that in those key messages as well.
That's really important. And I think Wendy wanted to ask about the clear, we've had an issue a few times, haven't we, about clear masks and the challenge for people who either lip read or people with autism for whom understanding facial expression is really enormous.
I was just about,
Melissa.
Sorry, I was just about to type a response about that. The hospitals don't tend to like you to use anything other than their own in their environment. But some of the nurses have allowed us, because we've ordered them online, there's no sort of specific place that you can actually get them, but you do have the face mask with the transparent part cut out where the mouth is. And we've ordered those, and we take those with us. So where we can, we put those on. And if not, we stay a safe distance and pull down, because obviously it's really important as part of communication. So,
definitely, definitely.
We'll take that feedback on particularly on the brings. We do have to try and keep the key messages simple and brief, so that we can put that into formats that work. But we'll definitely look at the face covering, which we did go backwards and forwards on a bit. So thanks for that feedback. So, Jenna, should we quickly run through what resources that we're making, and then just sort of ask for further feedback on what could work for engagement?
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that. So, so the kind of things that we're doing at the moment, as I mentioned, is we have got, we will have these videos which are translated and voiceover. So these key messages will be videos, so they'll use infographics as well to make it easier to understand, and we're just in the process of doing that at the moment. The other thing just to mention as well, when I send you this, I can send you the link to the YouTube, because there is also videos there which talk about the NHS. So I think someone mentioned earlier about, your NHS is still open, and that's been done by GPs. So it's actual GPs who have done the translations and talk about the GP services, what you can expect, how it works, that you might have more phone conversations as opposed to be coming into the surgery, etc. So they're really good videos as well, which have been done by our local GPs. The other thing to mention, and this goes back to the test and trace work, is that we've been developing a video around the Lincoln Green Walk to Test Centre. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there is a test centre in Lincoln Green where you can actually get tested for coronavirus. You have to have an appointment, so you have to ring for an appointment. You can't just turn up. If you do, you wouldn't be seen. There is interpreting as well available, so there's translation material as well. It is for people who live around Lincoln Green, because the message is to walk to the walking centre. You shouldn't really be using a bus because of, you know, the issues, and there is no car parking spaces, so you should really be, you know, walking to the centre. So what we've done is an actual
check. No, I think, you know, we've been very involved in communicating and helping get the numbers up, actually, because it was very low take up initially. So yeah, people should be aware.
That's right.
Of that.
Yeah, so just to say that this video will actually it will show you what you need to do before you have the test, what you do at home, what you do when you get to the centre, how the test actually works. So it's me actually in the video who shows you how to do it and everything. So hopefully we'll have that available quite soon as well.
And that video is really helpful mechanism, isn't it, for getting information out?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, and then the other work will be around the outbreak work, PIP, which you mentioned. So, and shielding. So the shielding information, I think you've already had that. And again, we're looking to do some translations and voiceovers for that. But the outbreak work, I think, once we get to, if we get to local lockdowns, then I'm sure you'll be more involved in some of that work and getting the key messages out to communities and groups that you work with. So I won't go into that. I'm aware we've not got a lot of time, and we really want to get the discussion with you guys really about engagement and how we do that with these messages and future messages that we might have as well. So Sam, shall we move on to that section?
So we wanted to ask the group what would work to engage with priority groups and communities. The first part of the work is, well, what are we saying? And we've kind of got that now. So now it's about how do we help connect with communities around these key messages.
I guess, and I've not seen the videos, so I don't know if you've already covered this, but a lot of people that we work with will find it hard to process when it's just somebody talking on a video. They find it a bit easier if there's infographics there and that kind of thing as well. But like I say, you've probably thought of that already. So, but that's definitely a factor for a lot of people that we work with. Cool.
Yeah, like a few nods and people thumbs up agreeing with that. So that multiple mechanism for communication is important.
Yeah.
What's really... Sorry, please go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to add as well, like if it's an option, having it where it's in sections so that people can stop and process it. I realise that's difficult and it's a technical thing, but kind of like being like, okay, there's this bit about this bit, process it, then click next to go on to the next bit. But yeah,
we've broken the videos down to shorter, just a few minutes, so there'll be symptoms in hand washing separate to try and break down that message. What we've found is critical around the key messages is, just as we do in our own homes, we have a conversation, we have a discussion with someone, we say, well, what does that mean for me? And with the key messages, we want to think of some sort of creative ways to engage with communities and people who are taking leadership positions. We're thinking about trying to engage with local radio DJs so we can get messages given in voices that people recognise and identify with. So sort of trying to reach out to a very, very diverse community of Leeds. What are some of the ways that we could do that, or some of the things that we could be thinking about, or perhaps we could work with you in progressing some of that work? We'll certainly be sharing all the key messages, but what else could we do to enable communities to understand how to stay safe?
You were nodding, Jane. Lee from Home Start. Are there particular challenges for some of the young families and people that you're working with?
I think it was the point that Sam was making around having a varied sort of communication. I think the thing for us is that you know, some of our families you know, from you know, ethnic backgrounds don't have the facility. I mean, I know they've got the phones and things, but it's very much around talking to people, very pictorial messages as well. You know, some of the families that we support have, you know, learning communication difficulties. So I think it's about that variation and working between partners. But as I say, I think with the families that it is a lot of talking and encouragement and you know, pointing in the right direction of where the you know, the information is, and then where possible trying to facilitate something. You know, we have given out iPads, you know, to people, and maybe doing, you know, trying to do a little bit more of that. Definitely, one size doesn't fit all, does it really?
Yeah, and we have talked a lot about, because I know in my area and in other deprived areas, that, you know, having access to laptops, digital, you know, media is really important. And if you haven't got that, what do you do? So there's the, you know, digital inclusion program within Leeds City Council, and we're trying to work with them to see how we get more of this, you know, digital media out to equipment out to people, but then also being able to use it, you know, understanding how to put the, you know, how to put it on, how to, you know, access the internet, etc. So how do we do that when we're in a socially distanced environment? So there's lots of debate around that as well, I think.
Damien, and
the other thing,
yeah, we've got a few people wanting to come in.
Okay, Karen.
So, to me, Pip, did you say?
Yeah, so should we?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Rachel and Paula as well.
Okay. I know Playbox, the Playbox project is rolling out across the city. I think they got some funding. Do you know about the Playbox project, Sam and Chet? No, you do. Oh, right. Okay. Because they were asking for stuff to contribute to that.
Yeah,
so,
Alice just made that point as well on the message board.
Yeah.
Oh, did she? Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
No,
Sorry.
it's great. Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds really, and they've got, again, I mean, and for me, and maybe for their newsletter too, again, I'll just have to repeat something that it said: for more information on coronavirus, please go to nhs.net. That in different community languages, I can fit that in. I can't fit all the other stuff in. Too much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you just get me that, I'd definitely put it in to our work.
Yeah. I'm sure we could get like a line that's translated into different languages, because that's all you need, isn't it? Really, a line, and then people can read that and then access through the websites or YouTube. I think the other thing I wanted to mention is through the outbreak plan, there is a lot of talk about wider workforce and training of staff as well. So it may be that we'll come to a point where we're actually training frontline staff to kind of understand, and I know people understand messages around COVID, but kind of to understand what contact tracing is, what does that mean, how does it work, who do you go to, etc. So our Public Health Resource Centre will be working on that to enable staff to be more informed around that process, so that if we do have an outbreak, people know where to and how to support people.
Rachel, I think you wanted to come in from Carers Leeds. Hi.
Yeah, I was just thinking that there is obviously the obvious physical barriers to get these messages across, but thinking about some of the conversations that we're having, and when you said, Sam, about that key message, what does it actually mean to me? We find that we're actually trying to build confidence in people to actually enforce these messages for themselves. So I just wondered if there is anything alongside that about having confidence, taking control, being assertive, because I think that a lot of the worry is that maybe I can do some of these things, these key messages that are being asked to do, but I'm more concerned about what other people are doing, and then that's what's causing people to withdraw back into their own homes and not and be that isolated and not take those chances of going out because they're so concerned about other people.
And I think that also chimes with comments that we've had around young people and peer pressure, and there's all of those issues that have, I think, come up in previous discussions too.
Yeah, some of the families that have someone that's shielding, but then also mixed generations, trying to stop people from going out, or even if there are symptoms in the house, but they've got teenagers that are just, wanting to see their friends. So it seems much more important. We're finding those conversations have definitely increased, just to help empower people to be a bit more forceful. And where they can turn for that practical advice. So I just wondered if alongside the key messages there was anything around having those difficult conversations with others maybe. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, it's a really important part, Rachel. Sorry, I'm gone.
I think at the heart of the messages is trust, is confidence, is dialogue. I, have to sit with my family members and say, well, what did that mean? And I think we went through a period where the messages were changing very, very rapidly. So we want to create a big effort around these key messages. We've got signages going up in streets. And so we want this will become more and more visible. But I think it's those conversations which happens in frontline organisations, it happens in community groups, it happens in faith sectors. That's how people build trust and confidence, which is where I'd like to understand through your experiences how to do that better.
And that's exactly the purpose of this network. Conversations we're having with public health about what resource, and that might include, some actual funding, but also materials and time and training and all of those different things that that really make use of the networks and the trusted organisations that we already have. Paula, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, just quickly because I need to leave as well now. But I think it's really good, and the key messages are, need to be simple and clear, like you're both saying. And I think there's something around equipping staff to be able to give those messages, because it's one thing for people to be able to read them on posters and getting the information out there, but for some of our most vulnerable who are not going to be accessing digital platforms or out in the community, and maybe not going to groups that we would have been running in in different times, being able to have those one-to-one conversations and get those messages across is really important, because what can happen is that you get so drawn into your day-to-day job, which is is really important, that sometimes we might be forgetting to keep giving those messages around those the safe distancing, the hand washing and all the rest of it. So just something about equipping staff to do that and keep giving those messages out as well, I think is really important.
Yeah, definitely, Paul. Thank you.
Other champions, I think we should not forget the power of the people that we're all working with, and there's a real potential, isn't there, for that sort of chain reaction of us and lots of people kind of talking about it and modelling it, but it's even more powerful, like you mentioned, if it's coming from people with lived experience, or people talking to their own kind of family and friends, getting children to repeat messages, all of those things.
And I think in terms of staff training, we would really like to do that, as I say, with the wider workforce. So doing some like brief interventions training with staff to say, because it's easy to read out those messages, isn't it? It's like what Sam said, it's what's behind those messages, but also maybe something like a frequently asked questions sheet that we could give to staff. So if you do get questions, you've got some answers that are prepared that you can then give out to community members, something like that. And I think we would probably like to know more from you in terms of what would help you, what kind of training would help you to give out those key messages, because I can assume something, but it's better if you can tell us really.
So does that move us on to that final question about how we do that and make use of this network to help make that happen, Chetna?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could come back again because I'm aware we've taken up quite a lot of your time just specifically maybe to talk about kind of staff training and the key messages and what you would like as a group, or things that you're coming across as you've said, really, about masks or particular issues around confidence. Because I think, you know, it's Wendy who said about confidence. You know, it's really important to build confidence for people to be able to go out again and feel safe, because, you know, it's a different new normal, isn't it, that we're all having to get used to. And if you've got health conditions or you've got people in your family who have symptoms, it's natural, it's normal to worry, really. So it's about building that confidence up in people to, you know, go out again. We're safe, obviously.
Absolutely. Sam, yeah.
Pip, I know we've gone a lot over the time. This is the first group Chetna and I have come to meet, the community of interest group, and I know we've sort of bombarded you with a lot of key messages and information, and things are still unfolding. As Pip mentioned, there's funding being looked at to support organisations to do some of the work. So we will like to continue having conversations as it evolves. I'm wondering if for now, whether it's helpful just for me to send a really short survey monkey asking 3 or 4 key questions. Formats is something we want you to ask as well. What do you need? And maybe ways that you could contribute. And I'll make it really short. And if you just put a couple of bullet points down, I could sort of bring that together and sort of shape that up for a future conversation. Would that work?
Yeah, we've got thumbs up from Wendy and Owen, and yeah, a few people, definitely, yeah.
Thank you. It gives you really thinking time, because you know, it is complex. It is a complex.
It is complex, but don't feel like you're bombarding us, because I think this group is absolutely up to speed with these issues. That's exactly why we've been meeting and having conversations and grappling with the complexity of it. So, you know, don't be afraid and feel that you can't ask us difficult questions, because I think that's exactly what we're the network for. We would massively welcome that. And thank you so much, Jane.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, I think it's really good to get that consistency of messages, you know, because I think that's part of it is a big issue around people, you know, having not a definitive, because we all know it keeps moving or it could move, but, you know, just that reassurance, and like people have said, it's about building people's confidence up to actually go out and whatever the new normal is. So I think it's a good approach.
Yeah, incredibly welcome, and thank you. And it definitely feels like something that this group had been asking for. So to have those fixed and clear messages that are shared and everybody can own is brilliant. So thank you both. Yeah, do absolutely come back to future meetings, but I think a survey sounds like a really good way forward. If anybody's got other kind of comments, I'm sure Sam and Chetna would be more than happy to be emailed directly or to do that through us. You know, and as things occur or as things come up, let's kind of keep that conversation going, because it's in all of our interest, isn't it, to get this right, so that people can stay healthy and well and return, you know, to, you know, the lives that they feel safe to choose. With that, confidence is a really important element. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us. It's been really helpful and really useful to meet people as well. So it's the first time I've come to this meeting, and I've learned loads today. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. So should we move on, unless anybody's got any kind of final questions, to just have a quick think about shielding. And so we just wanted to make people aware that there are the new graphics, the sort of infographics that have been produced, which I think Daisy might be able to put on the screen actually. One of the key things we just wanted to flag, and obviously we have had conversations previously about shielding.
Can you see that, Pip? Sorry.
Yeah, cool. See that. Can everybody? So again, this is part of the sort of drive to have clear messaging and have it in different formats that hopefully are easy for people to understand or to talk about and to be able to share. We particularly wanted to flag this issue that there's up until the 17th of July for people to register as shielding. So we've had conversations previously, haven't we? There were about 45,000 people in the city who it's believed, you know, are on the national, well, they're definitely on the national list, and people who are eligible for support and help. And less than half, broadly, of those people have registered through the helpline to access support. And for many of those, that might be absolutely fine. It might be because they're fine, but even so, it would be good, you know, to have that sense of that. But one of the particular areas of concerns, and we've again discussed this previously, is some of the areas that there are much lower uptake. So the Pakistani community, for example, is only about 27%. It's about a quarter, which is incredibly low. We've got information that Daisy has kindly shared in the weekly email, that's the sort of dashboard information. So if anybody wants to pick up particular conversations about that, but we just wanted to really flag that sort of 17th of July deadline to see if there's anything that we can do that would help. Is there anything more that would help disseminate? What are the barriers? But also, what are the implications? You know, are there things that people have got concerns about that we haven't thought about? I know we've raised some of those previously. But just to think if there's anything from your communities of interest perspective in terms of the groups and networks that you've got that you think we should consider around shielding.
I think that 17th of July message, I don't know if there is a single graphic for that. It'd be really good to promote that message. I guess, like, this is unofficial feedback, but I know that people were given the message when they were contacted by the shielding service that you know, if they could rely on family or friends to do the shopping for them, that's what they should do. So that probably is a factor in the lack of uptake in it. You know, is that they're kind of, well, they've got their plan in place, they've got their system now, they're not going to bother engaging in it, really.
Yeah.
To me, I suppose my question would be, and I'm reading that, would be, why is there a deadline? And then that might start making me worried that, oh, so if I miss a deadline, will I not get any more support from now on?
Yeah.
You know.
So that is exactly it. Yeah. That is exactly it, Damien. Yeah. So if people miss that deadline, then they will more likely not get support, really. But the problem was that the letters that went out from NHS England, so they didn't go from surgeries, they went nationally, didn't they? And if you can't read the letter, then you know you can't really then understand what service or what is available, what support is available, which then led to the lack of numbers uptaking on the shielding cohort, which is a real shame, because there's, you know, a huge amount of people who have missed out, really, in terms of support.
So why is there a deadline then? There is, but why can't you just register for support when you need it?
Because that's the national deadline.
Yeah, so there's been a national offer of food boxes, so quite a lot of people, I don't know, you'll have come across people who get them delivered. You can kind of accept or refuse them. Sometimes it's quite difficult because they get delivered about 6 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, you know, people have been passing them on to food banks and all sorts. But so it's partly about the national offer and the national sense of coming out of lockdown. But what we really want to do locally is make sure that we're giving a really clear message that support is still there, and there's some further funding gone into the ward hubs. So, you know, the 26 hubs that Voluntary Action Leeds, the Leeds Community Cares volunteers, all of that kind of massive effort is being continued, and there's some further funding, which is obviously really important that people have that message. But yeah, so the welfare line will still carry on. So even though officially some of these things finished, there's a commitment in Leeds to make sure that that helpline, even though it changes from being the shielding helpline, it will be diverted to a Leeds City Council welfare line. But it's this opportunity to kind of register for the national support, and Daisy's put the link in the chat box for the poster. So it kind of, in some ways, it was just to check with people what you felt we should be doing. I think those are really important bits of information to feed back about the, it's a bit of a mixed message, isn't it, about relying on families and self-reliance. And, Owen, I think that's a really important point. And there's a massive issue actually for a lot of us around kind of empowering people and all of the mess. This is complicated stuff, isn't it? And I know lots of organisations, Touchstone, for example, who will have delivered something like 10,000 meals, I think, by later this week, are also equally trying to, think, how do we step back from that? But also, as some of the hub provision is reducing, we're also seeing growth in other areas where the need, will tip up in other places. So we just need to, I think, all really work together and keep an eye on the issues, make sure that we're feeding in any concerns, any practical support that you need, anything that will help, make it as clear as we can. The bottom line with all of this isn't about whether people fill in forms or get counted, it's how safe and supported do people and communities feel. So that's kind of the key element to this, isn't it? So if there are things that you think we should be doing and that we can do to help with that, let us know. Do tell people about the deadline, but, equally, I understand, Damien, that, that sense that in a way it's a complicated message, isn't it? Because there's an implication that there's going to be a loss or something stopping. So, again, this is about people and relationships, isn't it? And trust and trying to have these conversations. Yes, sorry, come in, Rachel. Hi.
I just had a thought. That does make it a lot more clearer knowing that it's the government-based national support, because I was having the same sort of confusion over that. The other bit of confusion is the 2 metres. So in August, for those that are shielding, they can go shopping if they can maintain a 2 metre distance. However, everyone else who's not shielding is keeping a 1 metre distance. So it's quite conflicting there, especially when shops are changing all their spots and sort of, distancing guides, for them to be expected to keep a 2 metre distance while everyone else is keeping 1. So again, I think that will cause people to just simply hold back, keep isolated, but then that's a worry if there is support that's dropping off for them that are choosing to stay indoors because it's safer until everyone's at the same level. So just again, thoughts that are going on.
Yeah, really important point. And it starts to come down to people's judgment and encouraging people to be safe and make the conscious choice for themselves, but whilst also, mental health and well-being and confidence, all of these things, are really important too, aren't they? So any other thoughts, do let us know. Test and trace, we've talked about quite a bit actually, so I don't think we need to say too much other than people have seen, I hope, the plan. So there's a Leeds plan, and again, it's very much been supported and influenced by the conversations that we've been having. Leeds has been kind of recognised, I think, as having a positive health and well-being and promotion and prevention approach to this, and wanting to work in partnerships. So I think that's really helpful. If people have got particular questions about that, do let us know. And I think one of the really helpful points that came up in the discussion with Sam and Chetna was having that opportunity for people to have training and clear messages and support, to help deliver messages and to know what needs to be done as and when it happens. So there's something, I think, about being ready and able. We do know, we've seen from Leicester, Bradford is very near, isn't it, and is one of the other areas of concern. And I know, Gina, that will have been a big issue for you working across Bradford and Leeds. So far, Leeds seems to be, touch wood, doing well and kind of having, some really positive work. But sooner or later, we will have to deal with really difficult things. So I think, again, it's really important that we all think about what we will do when, some of those worst case scenario things happen, just so that we're doing a bit of that forward thinking and planning. But I think unless anybody else kind of wanted to comment on that, it was just to kind of really flag that for people and to flag that focus on communities and vulnerable groups and making sure that we're really putting them at the heart of this work, because that's so important.